On November 25, 2024, 5:28 a.m. local time, a Boeing 737-400 SF crashed short of the runway on approach to Vilnius International Airport. The aircraft was destroyed, the captain was killed, and the co-pilot and 2 passengers were seriously injured. With the interim report now released, we have solid details as to how this tragic accident occurred. Human error was a major factor. We go through all of these details in today's video. The report was published by the Ministry of Justice of the Republic of Lithuania and its Transport Accident and Incident Investigation Division. Involved in the crash investigation were representatives from the United States National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, Lithuania's Transport Competency Agency, and Germany's Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accident Investigation. The representative from the NTSB had support from advisors from the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, Honeywell International, and Boeing. So, getting to the event, the 737-400 SF, registration Echo Charlie Mike Foxtrot Echo, took off from Leipzig-Halle Airport at 03:08 local time. Operated by Swift Air on behalf of DHL, the jet headed towards its destination of Vilnius, Lithuania. On board was a crew of 2 pilots and 2 passengers. After takeoff, the jet turned right into an easterly heading and climbed to cruising altitude flight level 330, which was reached approximately 16 minutes later. About an hour after takeoff, the crew started their approach briefing and discussed the relevant charts and set frequencies and courses. 5 minutes after that, according to the cockpit voice recorder, the crew completed the descent checklist, omitting the landing data step. The crew then discussed the expectation of icing, as well as moderate turbulence and clouds below flight level 220. A few minutes later, the Warsaw Area Control Center, or ACC, indicated the frequency of Vilnius ACC. The captain then tried to contact Vilnius ACC, reporting a descent to flight level 290, but got no response. The captain tried to contact Vilnius ACC again, and after a discussion with the co-pilot about the correct frequency, the captain changed the frequency and radioed Vilnius ACC again. This time there was a response, and Vilnius ACC gave the clearance to descent to flight level 100. Minutes after the crew discussed turning the engine anti-ice on in accordance with weather conditions, Vilnius ACC instructed the aircraft to change frequency to Vilnius Aerodrome Control Center. It's around this time, about 10 minutes before the crash, that things start to unravel. We know that the crew was concerned with icing since they mentioned it twice according to the report, and indeed icing conditions existed. The report mentions the cockpit voice recorder picking up an audible double click, which is believed to be a pilot accidentally switching the electric 1 and engine 2 switches from on to off. Notice in this image where the engine anti-ice switches are in relation to the hydraulic electric/engine switches for System B, perfectly aligned vertically. And so the unintentional disabling of the hydraulic systems was what created the conditions for the plane to lose lift and go down. Speaking with commercial airline pilot and former Simple Flying contributor Jack Hurston gives us a clearer idea of what the pilots would have been experiencing in those minutes prior to the crash. It was night IMC, or instrument meteorological conditions, meaning it was a dark cockpit. The captain was busy on the radios and didn't catch the mistake. The report continues, stating that the autopilot, which was engaged in Command B, disconnected and an oral alert was triggered. A master caution light was also triggered but was immediately cancelled by the crew. 2 additional attempts were made to re-engage the autopilot B. However, they were both unsuccessful and the co-pilot flew the aircraft from this point forward with autopilot disengaged and auto-thrust engaged. And so, Jack notes that the pilots had an opportunity to rectify their inadvertent hydraulic system shutdown when the master caution light and oral warning sounded, but for whatever reason they reflexively silenced it and did not look for a root cause. After silencing the warning indications, the captain made 2 attempts to contact the Vilnius Approach Air Traffic Controller. The captain switched to the previous frequency of Vilnius ACC and asked to confirm the frequency of the air traffic controller. Vilnius ACC noted that he had the wrong frequency and provided the correct one. The captain established radio contact with the Vilnius Approach Air Traffic Controller. 2 minutes later, at 5:20 local time, the captain recognized that the autopilot was disconnected at about the same time as he attempted to engage engine anti-ice switches. The point was not further discussed by the crew, and the flight data recorder shows that the anti-ice switches were not engaged at this time. Minutes later, the co-pilot asked if anti-ice was on, to which the captain confirmed that it was. Jack notes that it seems like the captain tried to turn on the anti-ice switches but still missed them. The crew didn't complete the landing checklist, and there was confusion over radio communications. Autopilot kicking off for a reason that the crew couldn't figure out added to the chaos while hand-flying in night IMC conditions. There may have been a pre-existing human factor in that pilots may have been fatigued from performing this overnight flight, which Jack describes as brutal, and goes on to tell us, "All of these odds were stacked against them in the matter of a minute and a half or so. This is the kind of situation that every airline pilot is trained to avoid by slowing down and leveling at a safe altitude. It's a shame they didn't, because they easily could have gotten those 2 hydraulic pumps turned back on and rectified the situation." But of course, this did not happen, and critically, at 05:24 local time, the captain called for flaps 5. The cockpit voice recorder picks up several audible clicks, which were most likely coming from a flap handle movement. However, with the hydraulics turned off, flight data shows that the actual flap position remained at flaps 0, or flaps up. The aircraft reached its final approach phase, and the co-pilot asked the captain for gear down and flaps 15. The captain stated that they were still very fast and that the co-pilot needed to reduce speed first. Almost immediately after this, there was communication with VACC Vilnius Approach Air Traffic Controller, who informed the crew of a change to the tower frequency. The captain read back and confirmed an incorrect frequency, so from that point on, the crew was not on VACC Vilnius Approach Air Traffic Controller or VACC Vilnius Aerodrome Air Traffic Controller frequency. The captain made 2 more attempts to contact VACC Vilnius Aerodrome Air Traffic Controller on the incorrect frequency. A minute later, the co-pilot recognized that flaps were still retracted, and immediately after, the stick shaker activated and a sink rate pull-up warning was triggered by the enhanced ground proximity warning system. The crew called for go-around, and auto-throttle was set to go-around mode. Engines accelerated to above 90%, but by then it was too late, and the aircraft stalled and crashed. The lower speed on approach would normally have been safe at flaps 5, but with the flaps still up, they were too slow for the current aircraft configuration and entered an aerodynamic stall. And so, with the preliminary report and all of these details, we get a pretty clear sense of how things unravelled during the aircraft's approach. Our thanks again to Jack Hurston for providing some valuable insight into the accident. What are your thoughts on this unfortunate event? Let us know by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.